Hello and welcome everybody to the Beyond Grad Show. Today I'm excited to have Hemant join us for this episode. Normally, I ask people who are attending the show to kind of give an introduction. But in your case, because my introduction also has a question, let me kind of start that way and then we can share a lot more about you as we go along. So, Hemant is a software engineer, and I was just checking his LinkedIn profile, right? Just to get to know him more before we had a coffee chat and then now as I was setting up for this episode and I saw that okay he got an internship at Amazon, then went to Tesla, then went to SAP, went to Salesforce, went to Meta, and now you are at LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What the hell, dude? I mean, okay, if you have to kind of give a high level, but how did this happen, man?
First of all, I don't know. It's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'll take it as a compliment. Uh, I think it's pretty much same pattern, right? My philosophy always has been that if I'm not enjoying or if I'm not growing, right, like it's better to look outside, explore opportunities, and that is what the same thing I've been doing throughout my career. Some things were my own decisions, some things were forced decisions. We'll come to that later. But yeah, I think this is what the pattern has been, right? If I don't enjoy it, I don't like to work. I'll just try something new. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. There are so many places, right? To go from here. By the way, I see people who are already joining us live. There is a really good reason why I'm doing a live show is for people to start interacting with us and ask us questions. So to kind of just get that going, whoever is live right now, if you want to just say hi to us, like, hi, I'm so and so, and I'm joining from X location. Please add that on LinkedIn or on YouTube, wherever you are joining us from. That way, Hemant and I will see that you're interacting with us. And anytime you have questions, feel free to add them. I'll bring them up when they connect well to what we are talking about. So it is crazy. I mean, I definitely meant it as a compliment because it shows that you have a knack of positioning your technical experience extremely well at highly competitive companies. So it is a strong and kind of compliment from my side. Let's get into like the nitty gritty, and then we'll at the near the end we'll talk about how you've made the decision to come to the US or go back to India now that you are
Yep.
in India, decisions around your content creation and stuff like that. But let's get into the nitty gritty of you doing something exceptional, which is cracking these top companies. The first thing is everybody struggles with visibility, right? Visibility of getting themselves noticed at these companies. How did you, what did you do differently than a lot of other people to get interviews at these companies? We'll start at the high level and then we'll dig deeper.
Yeah, definitely. I think first is like just for my audience that tech interviews specifically, right? You can try everything, and you'll still fail, right? Because there are a lot of external factors. There's a lot of luck involved in that process. So I've been a lot luckier as well. And second thing is, I think like your first job is most difficult to get, and after that the journey becomes a little easier as you get some more experience. I mean, obviously the market is not perfect right now, so you'll face multiple challenges than I faced back in 2016-17, right? But generally, like when I started my career, I was not very active on LinkedIn, right? I just used to be like reading posts, not posting anything, or very like latent kind of user of LinkedIn. So, but I knew that thing that the competition has been intense in tech, right? So you will apply to 500 jobs, you'll maybe get uh, 20 or 30 callbacks, right? You'll proceed to interview stages of maybe 10 companies. You'll go into on-site of 5 companies, and then you'll get 2 offers, right? So it will never work that you apply to 30 companies and then you'll get an offer, right? You always have to be very proactive. You always have to keep applying to multiple places, right? Face a lot of rejections, get comfortable with the rejections, right? And there only you can proceed. To be honest, for my first few jobs, I did not specifically work on visibility, right? I think I was coming from a very like a tier two, tier three college from India, right? Got into a decent university, Stony Brook University, but I think Amazon added a lot of like weight to my resume, right? That was, I think I did not do anything specific for getting shortlisted for Amazon. I think maybe the university brand or name would have worked in that favor. But after that, it has been I would say a smoother ride, right? Getting an internship was difficult, right? I applied to 400, 500 companies, interviewed at Google, Meta, everyone rejected. Amazon, hope like luckily I got into that. And once it came on my resume, I think the journey became a lot smoother, right? And then it went good from there, right? Then I started working at more companies which were considered high value in tech, Tesla, then Salesforce, Meta, and then I think now first is like I have some pedigree to my resume, I believe, right, with all these companies stacked, and then I'm also uh, very active on LinkedIn, sharing content. So if any recruiter is checking their LinkedIn profile, there's a high probability that my post, be it good or bad, it will come on their profile, right? And that if I'm open to work or if they are hiring, so the probability of a conversation getting started from there will increase. Uh, that's the case for now, I think. But when I started, I was not focusing on all these things. But I think you just need to get that one uh, pedigree, I would say, in your journey, right? You can be from IIT because, or maybe from a Stanford, right? It'll be easier for you to get called. If not, then try to get into a big company, right? Or maybe like a Fang or OpenAI, Anthropic, all these companies which are considered high regarded in tech. And I think from there it will be much smoother.
I can definitely see that. I have helped a lot of professionals. Some have these brand names on their resume and some don't.
Yeah,
Having those brand names adds a social proof element, adds a halo effect to,
right.
okay, if you've cracked these companies in the past, then you can be a valued member at our company as well. But I think the first one in your case, the Amazon one, I can totally see why you say that there was a lot of luck involved. So there is an internal locus of control in the job search and an external locus of control. It is much higher. The external factors are much higher in the beginning.
Right.
But when it comes to the internal factors, let's say even Amazon was, let's say, luck, but then Tesla and SAP and Salesforce after that, what do you think you were doing differently? Because by then you still didn't have
Yeah.
your content. So yeah, when it comes to that, when it comes to your resume, or when it comes to getting a foot in the door, what were you doing differently?
I think like I'm a huge believer of volume, right? Again, which is basically it goes in all aspects of my life, right? Be it content, you'll see that I'm just posting daily. It would be high quality as well. It can be a not low quality as well. But my goal is just showing up, right? So I was very consistent with my interview prep. I was very consistent with applying to different industries, different companies, and I think this has been my philosophy that if I make a checklist, like a to-do list in my day, that hey, if I'm looking for a job, I need to apply to 20 companies, right? Uh, that's a different thing if I want to go there or not, right? I would still apply. If I get a call back, I'll give an interview. Either I'm going to pass the interview, or I'm going to fail the interview, but I'm going to get some feedback, right? And then these feedback would help me crack my dream companies, right? So I gave a lot of interviews. Like I think I've made 4 or 5 job switches in my career, and I think at every job switch I've definitely given more than 15, 20 plus interviews in every job switch. So like if you sum up, I've given definitely more than 100 interview loops in my short career of 8, 9 years. So I think volume is number one. That's what I tell my mentees also, right? Apply everywhere. If you get a chance to interview, learn, get feedback, and then try to improve in your next interview. So that's what I've been doing. Being very consistent with the interview prep, right? Also, interview prep is a very different skill than for being a good software engineer, right? That's the industry we are in. So you need to balance both. You can be a top 1% software engineer, but if you are not able to make switches at the right time, or maybe stuck in a like a low paying company for 10 years, right? You may grow, but compensation wise you won't grow, right? So these are some things which I always kept in my mind, that I need to be a good software engineer, perform well at the job I'm doing, but that doesn't mean that I'm just completely out of loop of what's going on in the interview market. What are the compensation people are giving. Even I'm not in the job market, I try to keep myself aware of what is going on in the interview market, how many code questions are there, how, for example, now AI assistant interviews are coming up, right? I'm not interviewing actively, but I've been talking to folks that what kind of interviews are these, what are they asking, because you never know, you'll be in the market, maybe few months, few years down the line. So you need to be. It shouldn't come as a shock to you that hey, the market has changed, the skills have changed. So be very proactive, be consistent, even if you're not looking for any job. So that's what I've been following throughout my career.
Interesting. 3 points I want to summarize from what you just said. One
Yeah,
is that you definitely index on volume and applying with that volume in mind. Number two is you talked about how you were very proactive or essentially had a plan for even when you fail interviews, because you said you failed like 14 out
yeah,
of 15 interviews on every single job search that you did. And then finally, you mentioned that being a good software engineer or being a good professional in any niche is a lot different than being a good interviewer. Those are just two different things altogether. Let's We can talk about each. Let's talk about some data points that only you can share because you've
yeah,
had this unique career graph. Talk me about the volume. Like, how did the volume change across those different companies, starting from, let's say, Tesla, because that was your first full-time role.
right.
From getting Tesla to getting LinkedIn, how did your volume change?
Yeah, I would say when so Tesla was my first job, right? At that time, I had no like maybe an internship that was also not converted, right? So nothing else to show in my resume. My grades were also not very up to the mark, right? Being a new grad, so I did not get like enough calls, I would say, but I still got decent calls. I uh, gave it on-site interview at that time. The company would flew you from New York to California. They'll invite you. They'll arrange a hotel stay. So that was the good time. So I traveled 3 times to California in 2017 for these interviews. Right? I interviewed at Mixpanel. There was a company. It's a data analytics company. Then I interviewed at Tesla. Then I also interviewed at Bloomberg in their New York office. Right. So 3-4 interviews I could make it to the on-site round, and only one was converted, Tesla. So I had no other option, and I always like I would have joined Tesla anyways if I would have gotten all the 3-4 offers, right? And I think after Tesla, it became a easier, I would say, right? That you are okay, you have Amazon, you have Tesla, so even recruiters also, they look for candidates who can clear interviews, right? Because they have their incentive also to getting good candidates who can clear the interview bar. So I think I created an impression that this guy can clear interviews if we gave a chance, and I think that's what happened. So at the time of SAP also, I interviewed with Goldman Sachs, SAP. I got both the offers, but I think I wanted to stay in California, so picked SAP. And then and then I think like after that it was like whole my decision, like where I want to interview, right? So I became a little selective, right? That so after SAP, to be honest, at that time Salesforce was my dream company, right? Same industry as SAP, much high paying, right? Cloud at that time, 2018-19 was the hot thing. So they were doing all good in the public cloud also. So I interviewed at Salesforce, very intensive interview, cleared it. And I think at that time, I did not interview much. I did not interview with Amazon. Maybe, yeah, I interviewed with Meta, Google, Salesforce, right? Got rejected by others, got into Salesforce, and I was really happy, right? After Salesforce, I think again, and at that time, I think I was in my career where recruiters were reaching out almost every month, right? I did not have to go and apply and put in referrals. I think I was getting emails in my LinkedIn that hey, you want to interview and all that kind of thing. And that was the time of 21, right, where the job market was really good. A lot of people were switching jobs from one company to other. So 21, I think it was probably the best time. At that time, uh, I did not apply to a single company on my own. I got, I think, 10, 15 calls just from recruiters, right? And I got 5 offers in 21, right? So I got offer from TikTok, I got offer from LinkedIn at that time. I got offer from Square, which is blogs. Then I got offer from like Meta as well. And I decided to join Meta because again, like the level they were giving me was higher. The competition was top notch. So I decided to go with Meta. And I think at Meta, I was kind of enjoying the work, right? I was like, I'm a like a very loyal user of Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook. I've been on social media like since my childhood. So it was also kind of a dream company at that time, right? So I thought that I would stick long term with Meta, right? Also, the growth was pretty good. I think the competition in Meta was pretty good. So there was no reason to look outside, right? Unless I decided that, okay, I want to move to India, right? And then Meta at that time was not in India. So I had to, switch company. If I would not have moved to India, I would have definitely stayed at Meta, right? But I think, yeah, now I'm very picky. As I say, like, I teach people to go after volume, uh, but myself, right, like, because I'm in a position that I don't have to join any other company, right? I Even if I have no job currently, I can maybe take 4 months, 5 months off, right? Learn anything new, maybe interview at the company I really want to go, or find the right team, right? And now I'm very, very picky, I would say, right? Even in India, also before LinkedIn, I got offer from Oracle, uh, but I just didn't want to rush into things. So I took my time. I took a 3 4 month break, and then gave interviews, and then finally picked LinkedIn, right, which felt like a good fit. But yeah, now I'm very picky. But I think initially, starting in your career, and if you are maybe laid off, or if you're starting your career, right, you don't have much options. I think go after volume, like apply as much as you can. Once you are much stable, once you are growing, your compensation is increasing at a steady pace, then I think you can pick and choose from that.
I think it depends on what season you are in, right? Is this
Yeah,
a season where you need a job, or is it a season where you're trying to optimize for your next role? I think those two seasons do things differently.
yeah,
Regarding all the marketing materials, right? I have a question from Rahul here. Did you build a production grade system and showcase it in real time? Like maybe, I don't know what the exact context is. Maybe it is to get interviews or in interviews. It could apply to both these cases.
yeah, yeah. I think I won't say like it was a production grade system, right? If I'm talking about my academic projects, most were like on a GitHub repo, right? Obviously, they were deployed, they were hosted, you can access it, but it's not like any real users were using it. But I think as I started jobs, my projects have been really impactful, right? At Salesforce, if I would say that, like I was actually working on air gap systems, I was actually working on the core Salesforce product, right, which everyone uses. At Meta, I was part of the youth org, so anything which relates to teenagers using Meta products, right, age appropriate content, family center, a lot of things which they are investing in the teen space. So I was leading a lot of that projects. So those were already in production, right? So for example, if I'm now interviewing it, I was interviewing at LinkedIn. I can just open the Instagram app. I can see that hey, this feature I built it, right? But when I was new in my career, right, I did not have these projects. So those were mostly academic projects, hosted somewhere. You can access it. Maybe it's a data analysis dashboard, or maybe it's a like a web app kind of thing, right, which is deployed live, but no one is using it. But now when I switch companies, most of the conversations are about like what projects I built or led during my time at these companies. So yeah, so it changes, but I think uh, nothing like a side project which I did, which is basically being used very widely. It's mostly all the companies in which I work. Those projects I talk about in interviews.
And proof of concept matters, like you said, right? If you imagine you getting into an interview and saying, okay, this is the feature that I worked on, and then you
Yeah,
can really dig into why the company did it, what the technical improvements were, and proof of concept really helps. Like I remember a story where I was part of this Formula SAE team in my master's time in the US, and I saw a friend of mine just take a part of the car and take it home, and I was like curious, okay, why are you taking this part home? And he's like, I have a Ford interview coming up, and I'm going to take this part to
okay,
showcase what I have done. I mean, that will blow people away, and you can
yeah,
do this. Yeah, sure, you may not be able to do share any things that are, let's say, proprietary and intellectual property. But if
right.
there is any public information available of the work that you have done, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Like if you open my LinkedIn, so I worked on Family Center, which is like in Instagram, Meta, everywhere you'll find. So there are TechCrunch articles of that. There are Verge articles of that feature which came up when we launched the product. So I've just attached everything in that LinkedIn. So if anyone uses, they know that okay, this was the product they worked on. It's being highlighted by the media, so it's definitely was just a big deal.
Awesome. Hemant, what has the referrals played a part like in your job search? Have you used them much, or has
Yeah.
just the social proof of the companies that you worked on just
Right.
helped you with that?
No, I think they've really helped me, right? I think the Amazon internship I got was from a referral, right?
Okay.
The first ever. Uh, I basically reached out to my seniors from my undergrad college, right? That hey, just come to US, help me refer. Got the call, cleared it. Then Salesforce interview also. So basically, I was getting calls from all the companies, right? And what I've noticed is getting calls from Google, Facebook, Amazon is much easier than getting calls from companies like Salesforce or Adobe. You know, uh, I'm not sure how they operate, but for me, it has really been very challenging getting calls from these companies. So I was not able to find any Salesforce recruiter or everything when I wanted to interview. So that also came from a referral. Again, a senior from my undergrad college working at Salesforce at that time. Meta also came from my wife's referral. So she was working at Meta at that time. She referred me. I got the call and then cleared it. We got the joining bonus also. We just went to Vegas with that. But
Nice.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I think yeah, LinkedIn just happened very organically. But I think referrals is a pretty good way. What I would rate is that first go and ping recruiters on your own, right? For example, if you want to get into Google, find Google recruiters, maybe working in Bangalore or Mountain View, right? Ping them that hey, I'm looking for a job. This is this has been my background. This is my resume, right? Take your chances. Ping 30, 40 recruiters. Maybe one or two of them will reply. Uh, if nothing is working out, find people. Maybe your ex-colleagues, maybe your seniors from college, right? Or maybe just random strangers on LinkedIn, right? Ping them, get a referral. It will add at least some weight to your application, right? And I don't think like other than these two anything will work, right? You can obviously apply online, you can use easy apply, but it's again get lost in a pool of applicants. So I think just if you have any direct relation with the recruiter, that comes at number one for me. Second is obviously employee referrals. I don't apply to any other company other than these two methods, so highly recommend it. Yeah.
By the way, did you come back from the Vegas trip with the money intact, or did you just lose it all there?
No, no, no. So
Or
I
what
think
happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, something like that?
I think Vegas is our favorite city. Like both me and my
Nice.
wife, right? We have been to Vegas more than 10 times. First, it's very close to Mountain View where we used to live, and I think we generally keep a budget that okay, $300. We're gonna go put in. If it lost, it's lost. So I think every time we just lost money. So that's fine.
I played blackjack at the tables, and it's just a great time. I played
Yeah,
poker on the machines. By the way, one cool thing, I don't know when you go next or not, and you probably done this trip. We did a whole national parks loop around Vegas. So we started at Vegas, Zion, Price. People do
yeah, yeah,
arches. We didn't do arches, but then we went
yeah,
to Page, Grand Canyon, and back to Vegas. I think that is the
yeah.
best trip that I've had. I don't know if you've been or not. I know we are digressing, but
I've not been to all. I've been to some of these, but yeah, it's just pretty terrific.
that is the US that should be advertised and
Yeah,
not
yeah,
here. I mean, yeah, New York is cool. I've been there multiple times. SF is cool as well. But the natural beauty of the national
yeah.
parks is just unbelievable.
Tremendous. Yeah, yeah.
By the way, I have somebody calling you Himanshu for some reason. Was that ever your name or something like that?
No, no, no. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't. Himanshu is not my name. My other name, like my pet name, which a lot of my family
Yeah.
members also is Rahul. But
Okay.
never
Why?
been called.
Okay, I
Yeah,
have to ask. Why Rahul?
I, I think it was my name since childhood, right? And
Okay.
then I don't know, for some reason in school it was Hemant. So like all my like colleagues or people who know me through professional, they call me Hemant. But all my family and other members call me Rahul.
I was like, maybe he's a big Shah Rukh Khan fan or something like that, that your friends called him
Yeah.
Rahul.
Either Shah Rukh Khan or Rahul Dravid.
Yeah, that could be it
Right.
also. Okay, coming back to what we were chatting about, right? I think you talked about how brand logos on your resume helped. You talked about how referrals helped. And you also mentioned the three ways that you would look for things like you would look for recruiters first, you would look for people next, and then you will basically apply probably
Yeah,
without a referral. Let's talk about interviewing because getting your foot in the door is one thing and interviewing is yet another. Let's talk about technical interviewing first. As a software engineer,
yeah,
and let's say we divided into two avatars. Like the first avatar is the student who's looking for their first or very early career. Let's take
yeah,
early career, for example. How should they prepare for technical interviewing, especially on the software side? And then next would be how should senior professionals, like senior staff professionals, prepare for technical interviews?
yeah. I think for a new grad, 80% of your time should go in DSA. This is what I'm talking about current, interview process. Maybe 1 year, 2 year down the line, everything changes because AI is coming up. But let's just consider 2026 March, right? Uh, 80% of your time should go in lead code or DSA, problem solving. Try to recognize patterns, right? Like try to figure out which data structures will be used, and then there are some other nuances, right? It's gonna be a 45-minute, 1 hour interview. So how you'll be able to explain it better, how you'll be able to, maybe convert your complex thoughts in a simple manner. So communication, but it all comes under like DSA, I would say, right? Uh, because I think for a new grad, almost 90% of the companies are just going to have this sound. They're going to optimize for this sound, and then there is going to be some culture fit behavioral round which you can easily clear. I mean, like if you impress them in DSA, right? Uh, that's one thing. When you grow a little senior, let's say we talk about SD2, we talk about senior, right? Then some other rounds also come up. For example, system design. That's again, it's pretty interesting interview round, I would say, because it is actually related to the work you do, right? DSA is like far away, I would say, from the actual software engineering which you are doing, but you have to do it because you want to clear these companies. System design, the good thing is it is related to the work you are doing, right? Uh, so very interesting to prepare for, at least in my case, right? In interviews also you learn a lot, while preparing also you learn a lot about real software engineering. And for SD2 senior, this round is very important. I think it's sometimes more important than DSA round also, right? uh, and then there are, I haven't seen low level design rounds much in US, but I think in India it's also very popular. It is again a design round, but it focuses more on code, right? design patterns you are using in coding, what, like, for example, there are multiple design patterns for solving a problem, writing a code. So they're going to focus on that. So SD2, SD3 roles, I think these are three types of interviews. And then again, you have your behavioral rounds, right? So you now for SD2, SD3, you have, assuming you have 4 or 5 years of experience, right? So you would have worked on real projects. You would have worked in industry for a good time. So you'll have stories, right? If you are leading a project, if you have delegating, ownership, leadership, conflict, all these kind of stories, you have to, converse with the interviewer and try to impress them. And then when it comes to staff and plus, I think system design now becomes more and more important, right? They would want you to go into much depth. They would also want you to know, what are the industry trends. Uh, like they also expect that you have led large complexity projects. So it just becomes more and more impactful. The DSA and coding, these rounds become less because at staff level, they don't expect you to implement a lot of code, especially now with AI agents. I think coding has become a lot easier. So, like, what I think is the bar is going to increase due to this, because like even a junior engineer can code, even staff engineer can code now. So it's no longer the bottleneck. So companies would start expecting some design or some X factor from junior engineers also, right? So that also needs to be taken care now when you're interviewing. But yeah, generally these are three, four, five kinds of rounds, right? For technical, and then basically your communication, your ability to explain, your problem solving mindset, these will come in parallel across all the rounds, and that's what make you a good interviewee. Yeah.
That is awesome. Great kind of do compartmentalization for which avatar is actually going for technical interviews. You in the technical interviews, I've heard the importance of actually explaining your code, explaining your thinking, your communication skills, how it is a conversation in the
Yeah.
entire process. How does somebody improve that on that front?
You mean how much they like index on that?
Like, let's say how, like, it's, is it part of preparing for DSA system design? Like, how do you get better at that part of technical interviewing, the communication skills part?
Yeah, I think it's all about practice, right? If you think that you'll go in your first interview and you'll kill it, uh, you won't, right? You have to fail a lot to be able to at least know that what you're doing wrong, right? I in my meta interview, like when I gave it the first time, it went really good, right? I was able to answer all the questions. I was able to communicate also pretty clean, but I got the feedback that you were able to answer all the questions, but you were not driving the interview, right? The interviewer had to ask you questions, and then you'll lead in that direction, right? So they were expecting a little ownership from me, but I was actually waiting for the interviewer to, ask questions and then I'll answer. So it should not be like that. But again, like if I would not have got that feedback, I would never know, right? So I think practice in a time box manner, right? Generally, every interview is going to be 45 minutes to 1 hour. For example, if we talk about DSA, uh, generally most companies, they ask two questions, right? So you have at least, like, you have around 25 minutes for one question, right? So when you are preparing, when you're practicing, start a stopwatch so that you keep track of the time, uh, just to improve your communication, just to make sure that you are not like you're confident. Maybe record yourself while doing mock interviews. Maybe speak in front of mirror. There are a lot of techniques through which you can gain more confidence. Uh, but I think, yeah, mock interviews is pretty good, I would say, right? It shows you the real picture. It puts you in a interview like situation, and you are more pressurized, right? When a person is in front of you, you feel very intimidated. You'll fumble and all those kind of things. You're not able to explain. But I think that's what the purpose of mock interview is, to bring out your flaws, and then you work on those flaws. So I think mock interviews really help me. For communication also, I think just practicing in front of camera. See, for example, even I know that I sometimes talk real fast, right? So I'm working on myself. So you'll notice these things, like only when you see yourself in a camera or in a mirror, and that will really help you. I mean, it's not a process which can be just improved in 3 days or 4 days, right? It's a lifelong process. But I think mock interviews, failing in real interviews, would show you that picture that what you need to do.
That is excellent advice. I tell my mentees all the time, record yourself on the phone. It is the most uncomfortable thing to do, to watch your own recording. And
Yeah.
I empathize with them because I watch recording of this show to see, okay, how can I get better? And it sucks, but that's the only way to improve. You said something very interesting about the ownership feedback you got. I want to double down on that a little bit, which we by asking you, can you give us an example of how you would showcase ownership in an interview setting?
Right. I think first is that you should not just you should not expect the interview to drive the interview, right? They are there to guide you. They are there to give you hints and correct you when you're going in the wrong direction. Do not let them be in the driver's seat of the interview, right? Be it coding, right? They are gonna give you a question. It's your duty to ask clarifying questions. Get the requirements clear, give possible solutions, dry run the code, give some test cases, right? They are going to guide you if you are going wrong, but do not expect them that I will do this only if they ask me to do it, right? Because everything is being noted. They are also seeing that if you are given a project, how well you'll drive it, right? And you're giving an impression that I'm not going to drive it, I'll let someone else drive it, and I'm just going to be the executor. Then it's a bad impression, right? Especially at senior and staff levels, it's a red flag. Uh, and I would also say that practice would really help here. Like structure your interviews, right? For example, in coding interviews, you should exactly know how your like ideally what your next 1 hour is going to look like, right? Track every time what you're doing, right? You should be able to done with question one in 30 minutes, then proceed, right? For system design, have a structure in mind how you want to drive the interview, right? Ask requirements. I mean, like clarify requirements, right? Give APIs. I mean, there's a whole structure you'll be able to find on internet. Uh, but because that will give you confidence, right? If you exactly know how you want to drive the interview right before the interview, you'll do good. But if you don't know, if you just go there, see your questions, and then just very chaotically you are trying to figure out what to be done, then then it's a red flag because a lot of people are very well prepared and you're competing with those folks. So you need to up your game. So I think just visualize in your head before the interview, like the how the next 1 hour should be, right? And then just follow that path, right? I think it will only come with more and more practice, practice more, and just feel. I would say that like when I interview, I think of myself as the tech lead, right? And the person who is going to take interview, he's a junior person, right? So in my company, how I'm going to explain them the architecture, or maybe, like, so they don't know anything about me or like whatever is happening, and it's my duty to explain them in the most simplistic manner. So this is the persona I keep in mind, and this is how I approach the interview, and I think it has worked really well. Do not think that they are the tech lead, right, and they're going to drive the interview. It might work if you are a very new grad and they have to give you hints and you are able to complete it. But I think for SD2, SD3 level, companies expect a lot of ownership, a lot of driving the whole projects. So you won't be able to make it in these levels.
I mean, and those are great examples of how to drive ownership. I think one of the frameworks that I have shared, even though I've not been part of software engineering uh, interviews, but this is something that been is asked in every domain, right? There's a case
Yeah.
given to you and you have to figure it out. And I use the case framework, clarifying questions. So ask that first. Assumptions being the A. So state some of the assumptions that you're making. And then S is systemize the project or systemize the code and share that.
Right.
And then finally is evidence, right? Like,
Right.
okay, here's the code. Here are three things that can happen. In short, that is one way that somebody can take ownership of the system design interviews. And I mean, is there something that is that hits home based on your experience?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think these kind of frameworks and structure, I mean, this is one of it. There are many such others, right? But whatever works for you, whatever helps you feel more confident, right? That how you can structure the interview, how you can drive the interview from one phase to the other. Uh, and if you can do that, it will become a lot easier. So this is what I think. I think it's in the end it's all game of confidence. If you are feeling really confident on that day, you'll give an impression even for a like a 6 out of 10 interview that the interviewer will consider it 8 on 10. But if you are very intimidated, if you have no structure, if you're just talking around, then even if you are maybe let's say technically 10 on 10, it will give a 6 on 10 impression. So I think confidence really makes or breaks the interview, even if we have less or more technical knowledge.
Interesting. Confidence is so key. I mean, confidence shows credibility, I think, and that is a very attractive factor in the interviewing process. I definitely, there are a few questions. They are more about software engineering space in general and career. So I
Yeah,
will take them at the end. I will end this whole application process with the final question about in interviewing, which is a behavioral round, right? Or the behavioral aspects. And as you go higher, the behavioral aspects start to become more important. I This is a leading question, but
right.
how much importance would you give to preparing for the behavioral round for those three avatars that we talked about?
Um, Very, very, very important, and it's become more and more important as you go higher in the career. If it's your first job or maybe an internship, not a lot of expectation, right? They want someone who can come, who can get tasks and execute those tasks, right? Generally, if it's your first job, you would have very less experience, right? So they'll try to gauge you on things like, okay, in a group project, like what was your role, right? They're trying to see like what is your personality is. At this time, not a lot of importance is given to behavioral, I would say, but it doesn't mean that you should be very blank when all these situations come up, right? You should definitely be prepared what your role was in the project. You want to come up as a leader from day one, right? Even if you are starting your job, personality wise, like you should come up as a leader, right? It would help in interviews. As you go higher, for example, SD2 as senior, right? They expect some ownership from you, right? uh, for example, let's say now I have 8 years of experience, right? If I go in an interview, I cannot say that, hey, I implemented all those things, right? I was given a task and I executed it, right? I was involved in development of this feature, right? Now the expectation is that I'm no longer just the code machine, right? I was a tech lead, right? I basically got a very ambiguous problem, which was very challenging. Then I broke it down into maybe smaller sub problems. Then I maybe coded some of these problems. Then I maybe delegated some of these problems. I was basically working with product managers. I was working with marketing team. I was, like I was involved in the overall development of the project from scratch to the launch, right? And it's basically it shows how you have grown, right? That you're not just uh, writing code, but you are actually involved in the success or failure of the project, right? You want to give an impression that if the project was failed, it was my responsibility. Maybe I did not estimate it better. Maybe I did not foresee any challenges which came, right? Or maybe there were some other things which I just did not take into account, which is fine. It happens all the time in software engineering, right? But the owner should be you, and this is what they expect from SD2 or maybe senior roles also, right? When it comes to staff, the scope is again much higher, right? Uh, you are leading multiple projects, right? You are involved in growing the overall team. Like maybe 3 or 4 seniors are under you who are dependent on you for maybe design reviews or maybe breaking down even more complex problems. So the ambiguity of the challenge you're working on increases, the ownership increases, and when you go into behavioral interview, you want to give those signals, right? You have
Hmm.
your stories prepared, maybe 8 or 10 different stories prepared for different situations. How well you basically overcome those situations, how well if you failed, what was the learning you got from those failures, right? How you improved after that. So it's like, I mean, there are templates, right, which basically 10 or 12 kind of categories, different questions. So you should have stories prepared in star format, and there are different format you can prepare those answers as well. But yeah, in generally, I think the scope becomes more and more challenging. Uh, if, for example, if I'm interviewing for staff engineer, right, and if I say that okay, I was just leading a team of 6 engineers, right, it's a good senior scope, strong senior scope. But for staff, they want at least someone who was maybe involved in more complex problems and more complex challenges. So the level you're interviewing for, you need to fine tune your stories accordingly. Right, you should have the right experience. You should have, I mean, you should have worked on right projects, right opportunities, and if you haven't worked yet, good time to maybe talk to your manager, increase the scope, maybe switch team, company, whatever works for you if you want to grow in your career. But yeah, this is how the expectations rise at every level.
Like you said, in a behavioral round, it's all about signals and strong stories. Like you
Yeah,
have to prepare and prove in a conversation that you are able to take the lead. So that is
yeah,
excellent. I do want to switch gears here because I think a very big topic that I want to touch upon is your move to India. And by the way, if anybody has questions about like India specific and moving from the US to India, please put them down here. I'll ask him during this section. So let me get this right. You and your wife were both working in the tech industry, probably in
yeah,
California. That is like the 1% of the US story that everybody's hoping for, right?
yeah,
Again, just like the way that I started this interview, like, what the hell, man? I mean, why did you at that point, at that, you can say peak in terms of your US career, why did you think about switching gears and coming back to India?
yeah. I mean, I get this question asked a lot. So, first is that from the day I moved to US for my masters, right, 2016, 17 August, I knew that like it's a temporary thing, right? I won't be settling here. It was always in my head that I would be settling in India somehow. The timeline was not clear, right? That when I would move back, I had put no timeline on that thing, and I think I was still like I was 22 years old when I moved to US. So a lot of things are gonna change from that. And I think I met my wife like in grad school in Stony Brook there as well, right? And at that time
Nice.
we yeah. So she also had similar plans, but again, it was very new to, like make a decision that, like, do we want to move back? Do we don't want to move back? We haven't even started working US, so we had huge education loans. So like no one is thinking, but I think in back of head, I always knew that I wanted to go back someday, right? And I think so. We got our H1Bs. I had my I-140 approved. Everything was sorted, right? But there were a lot of things which I think I was missing about India, and it started like increasing with every year, right? And I think then I realized that it's probably the right time to go. So I think COVID was one thing, right, in which like we felt that like we might I mean, wish we could have went there to India and all this kind of thing. So some like strong decisions started around that time, 21, right? So we decided that maybe in the next 2 3 years we want to take steps in that direction of moving to India, right? That's one thing. Second thing was first we had a number in our mind that if we made this much corpus, we'll move back. But then we realized
Mm.
that number keeps on changing, right? Every year there would something which come up, right? So we stopped caring about the number. We put a timeline that okay, 2024, we are moving back, right? So I think honestly we wanted to move back in 2023, but I was with Meta and I wanted to just stay one more year because the compensation has been really good at that time. So we stayed like a year, and then I think there were a lot of instances which we started missing about India. When some are very logical, right? Obviously, H1B visa, stamping, a lot of hassles. You cannot travel to India. You cannot move freely. My wife, she missed her mom's retirement due to these restrictions. I had to travel alone. So a lot of these things were that, like, if you want, we already know that we want to move back to India, so let's just do it, right? We don't want to wait for these circumstances again. Uh, and also, like, I think culture wise also we both are very social, right? We love spending time with friends, cousins, family, going to cafes, going to bars, and all those kind of things. And I think life in US started to becoming more monotonous, right? That work, gym, Netflix. So it started to becoming very monotonous, and every time we used to, go back to India, right, for a month or two, like we will see that India is also changed a lot. Opportunities are also there, and then I think one biggest factor also was that we both wanted to. I mean, like I started, content and newsletter and all those kind of things, but I was not able to monetize any of it because I was an H1B and I cannot do any of thing. And I was like that. I think even if I have to, let's say, maybe start a product or do anything, maybe if I like, even if I don't do it, at least there's an option. Like there's a freedom in your mind that I can do whatever I want. So that was not in US, right? So a lot of these reasons combined, like we realized that I think we would be much happier in India, and I think like ever since we moved back, we haven't regretted it a single day. I think Bangalore, pretty good culture. I think you go talk to a second year, third year student, everyone is talking about building very nice cafes, bars, much better than US. Don't want to like basically insult anyone, but I think party scenes pretty good here. And yeah, I think I miss US sometimes because I have a lot of friends and all those folks there. But yeah, I think we are much happier coming back to India. And I think one reason, like, I don't want anyone to just like follow that this is the right path. Uh, because we both were in good companies, we were both making good money, so we also had decent savings, right? So we saved money, we came back here. I took a 5 6 month break. I mean, we are in a position that even like we can do whatever we want, right? Even if we have to quit our job, sit for a 1 year or 2 year, it won't impact us a lot, right? So make sure that you create at least some safety net. Like only then you can experience a certain freedom here.
Wow. First of all, whoever thinks that humans make decisions rationally, I mean, I'll laugh at their face because we think we are rational people, but most of our decisions are irrational reasons, just conforming rational reasons, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah. I mean,
so I understand everything
these
that you
are
said.
honestly reasons which are logical, right? There was a lot of
Yeah.
illogical reasons also. Like we both are huge cricket fans, so we used to wake up like 6 in the morning to watch IPL matches or India matches, right? We came to India and like so India was in the final of the World Cup, right? Uh, and Friday the match was there. Saturday we booked tickets. Sunday we were in Ahmedabad. We watched the finals. So these are like things like we love. We can do it whenever we want. We can travel anywhere we want. So I think that's kind of a freedom which we really wanted, and like which you cannot put a price to it.
Absolutely. I stayed in India for 6 months last year, prepping for my sister's wedding and my cousin's wedding. And you can see the change in that
Yeah,
country, and
yeah,
it calls you back. And like you said, one of my dreams is to be a Mumbai Indians seasons ticket holder, where
yeah.
I
Okay,
can just go to Wankhede and watch all the home matches. I mean, that would be awesome, being a Mumbaikar and a
right, right,
Mumbai
right. Yeah.
born guy. So excited. I know that you will be supporting. Yeah, okay, wait. digression. Which team will you be supporting this IPL?
Yeah, I've been following cricket since like maybe when I was 5 years old, right? So I've been born and brought up in Delhi. So when IPL started, I was like a huge Delhi fan. I still support Delhi Capitals. But
Nice.
now, first I'm in Bangalore, right? So RCB is also one of my favorites. I'm a huge Virat Kohli fan. You can see the poster. I'm very really inspired by Virat Kohli. So I think RCB is also one of my favorites. But I think like RCB has also won one trophy now. So I want Delhi Capitals to really do something. Yeah.
Okay, good luck this year. That will be fun. But I mean, MI is a strong team this year. We'll see how that goes.
yeah. Yeah.
I have three questions regarding this India thing, but we don't have a lot of time. So let's do it rapid fire style,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
One of the biggest objections people have is when it comes to India is about the work culture. What did you think about the work culture versus the US work culture?
I think it's definitely not as good as US, honestly. But I think if you talk about companies like US-based companies in India, for example, I work for LinkedIn, my wife works for Airbnb. It's still pretty good, right? I, I'm not sure like how LinkedIn US or Airbnb US is, but I think it's still very manageable. I work the regular 8 to 9 hours a day, right? But I've also heard stories of my friends working at maybe other companies who have been working 10, 12 hours a day. So I think on an average, US work culture would be better. But I think India is also following that. Like at least the US based companies, they try to maintain the same culture. For example, I've heard Google India has very good culture, right? Microsoft India has really good culture. These are some things which I've heard. There are other companies which have bad culture also, but I think on an average US culture is better. But I think India is also uh, doing better, I would say.
Okay, interesting. The other point is about essentially the way you search for jobs. Like, was the job search different in India versus the US?
I think I've just used LinkedIn, right? I know a lot of other platforms are there in India as well, right? Which work for some people, but I have been just using LinkedIn. And I think this is just my personal opinion. So, right, not sure if it's right or wrong, but I think interviews are a little more difficult in India,
Hmm.
right, to clear. This has been my observation, especially the system design parts. I think coding interviews were very similar, but the system design, lower level design part, it's a little on the harder side. But that is also because for top companies in India, the competition is also more, right? So they really want the best talent. But yeah, I think a little harder, but on an average, I think pretty much same kind of interviews, same interview prep needed. It's just the difficulty can be higher there.
Hmm. So fascinating that it brings me back to the IIT days and how difficult it is to get into IITs, right? So I can see the competition playing a part. Fun question is the quality of the problems that you are solving. A lot of people have this notion that, oh, I mean, I am at the cutting edge in the US and I want to be at the cutting edge in India. What do you think about that part?
I think it can hold true for some companies, I would say, right? For example, Meta, right? We were doing a lot of crazy good work in US. In India, they just started their Eng team, right? They are just setting up office. So you can't expect that like they'll be solving the same problems, right? But then some companies have really matured in India, right? For example, if you talk about Amazon, if you talk about Google, Microsoft, who have been in India for almost last 10 to 15 years, right? They have been doing really good work, right? Even the AI projects, even for example, Google Pay was just really impressive product, just like built from India. For
Yeah.
example, LinkedIn, right? My team, uh, it's all India based, right?
Hmm.
All Eng team, we have like 40, 50 engineers, everyone based in India, right? So a lot of independent projects, I think, across all companies are coming to India, right? Obviously, maybe like the obviously I think the HQ will have definitely more impactful projects because the decision makers are there, right? But I think in India also a lot of impactful projects are now coming up, and I've also seen like a lot of companies increasing their headcount in India. and moving a lot of projects here. So I'm very hopeful that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, it's going to be more impactful.
Very cool. I think that is a great segue into some of the questions I have regarding career and software engineering space in general. So, Krish asks, given the current landscape, are you seeing a higher ROI on deep specialization? So, being the Salesforce guy or the AI guy, or on being a product minded engineer who can justify the ROI of their own salary? So, where do you see that deep specialization or just being more product minded?
I mean, I've always been journalist in my career, right? I have no expertise in anything. Uh, I mean, like just like I just want to solve problems, right? Uh, and ask the right question. Basically, is this problem even worth solving? Right? And I think you are good to go, especially with AI coming up. I don't think like specialization unless you are a very ML or AI engineer, right? Something like that. Other than that, I don't think specialization like means anything now, right? You can learn anything, you can grasp anything, you can do anything at a very rapid stage now. So I think the real skill comes in identifying the right problems to solve, right? If you get a project first, rather than just started creating the engineering document for that, spend couple of days that like if we deliver this project, like will it impact the revenue or will it improve the productivity or whatever metrics you are trying to chase. Spend time on that, and if not, there's no point doing it, right? Move to the maybe the next thing which you can do. So I think these are the right questions, and I think the engineers who are going to focus on this will do like far better, right, than someone who has just like a specialized or a technical skill. uh, I think the product manager and software engineer roles are converging really fast. Uh, and by converging, I mean that it's a generalist kind of role, right? That you have, that you can just get stuff done, right? Irrespective of what stuff is there. That's one trajectory, I think, in which 80-90% of the engineers are going to fall. Then there's another, which is like people who are developing the models, right? What ML engineers, AI engineers, those have a different trajectory, right? Those need to be really technically skilled. Those should know what LLM is, what token is, what vector databases are, how, like, what new model Claude is launching, what is different in that. So like you can pick either of these. I mean, I have always been a generalist. I've worked across different companies, different projects, infra, like product, all those kind of things I've been doing. Now I'm doing product infra, which is again a little different. So I think just be very agile to learn new things, learn fast, and fail fast, and then just keep improving yourself. I think that's the only skill set which I believe would do good.
I think generalist is becoming a specialty of its own, right? It's
Yeah,
becoming a deep expertise of its own.
right.
I'm curious to ask, because software engineering and product management is getting so interconnected to each other, going forward, who do you think has more capital in the team? A product manager who can vibe code and prototype, or a software engineer who has product sense?
Uh, yeah, I think that's interesting to see. I mean, I'm a software engineer, so I'm obviously gonna a little biased towards
Yeah.
the software engineering. Uh, but I still feel that, I mean, especially like I'm just using agents to write code now, right?
Mhm.
I still see that there are some gaps, right? Obviously, it can solve a lot of problems, but when you give it a really complex code base or maybe a legacy code base, right, of big companies, then you need someone with technical knowledge, right, who can see like the direction in which the AI agent is going is right or wrong. If
Mm.
wrong, pivot, right?
Mm.
If you keep going wrong in that direction, that it's gonna mess your code base really fast, right? So I think it's still software engineers have an edge because agents are not fully equipped to maybe for a prototype maybe, but like if you really want to launch something to an actual user, right, with the fully fledged scale, I think agents are not equipped. Maybe 2 3 years, 1 year, they'll be able to do it, but not now. This is what I've been seeing. But yeah, I think there's a new role coming up, forward deployed engineers, right? Which is basically like a mix of product and uh, like a software engineer, which I think that's gonna be the upcoming role, which everyone should basically have those skill sets. I mean, everyone basically needs to be a owner in a sense that, right? For example, currently one manager has, let's say, 10 reports, right? I think future would be that there are 10 independent folks, each is managing 4 or 5 AI agents, or and then they have impact of like 4 or 5 engineers, right? Obviously, uh, like when I say this, it means that the workforce is going to get reduced, right? But I think new roles will come up if you keep upskilling, if you keep up leveling yourself. You'll be in a good shape.
Interesting. Forward deployed engineers. Okay, that's very
Yeah.
interesting. This is another question, and this person, Abhinav, they did say sorry about calling you Himanshu. Did you ever had a mentee who was trying to make a transition from solution consulting to a SWE role, software engineering role? If yes, were they able to do that transition, and what was the roadmap you would share for them?
I'm not sure solution consulting. I mean, I've had mentees who transition from data engineer to software engineer. I've had mentees who transition from like a solutions architect to a software engineer role. I'm not sure if solution consulting fall into that category. But I think the roadmap is pretty clear. First is always ask yourself that do you really want to do it, or are you just doing because software engineers are paid well, right? Because even if you have 5 years of experience as a data engineer, you will be, if not scratch, you'll be starting from like a particular maybe new grad kind of level, right? You have to learn all the skills from fresh. Maybe the journey is now faster with AI, but it's gonna get difficult, right? So first ask yourself, am I really gonna take that path? Uh, or you want to improve in the current path you are, which can also do good, right? That's one thing. And second thing is, again, like, to make the transition, either you in your current company try to find opportunity, right? Maybe in a different team or a company, maybe in a different team or under different manager, right? Which is often the easier path, right? Because you don't have to interview, or you interview, right? When you interview, you change your resume in a way that you're not sounding like a solution consulting. You sell yourself that, hey, uh, I am a software engineer, but I've done some software consulting, right? You don't want your resume to get just rejected at multiple places. So fine tune your profile, fine tune your resume, sell yourself as a software engineer, the role which you want to go. And then again, for interview, you need to prepare really hard, because other software engineers are in the market looking for the same job as you. So you need to work 5x or 10x of them. Uh, and then only you can transition. But I think if in your company there is an opportunity to make the transition, that's a pretty good way. That's the
Yeah.
same with IC to manager transition or any transition. I think in that same company is much easier.
100%. And that's a very good point. Think of it as a lateral move, and
Yeah,
you can sometimes you have access to those people as well. So you can just ask
right,
them, okay, here's where I am, here's where I want to be. What is the gap that how can I fill this gap? And what is that gap? So that is
right.
excellent point. All right. Krish did come back to the forward deployed engineers, and he said that, yeah, he's heard that term as well. So maybe this is something that we are sharing that's going to come and become popular a year or two down the line. That's pretty cool to hear.
It's already popular. Like
Okay.
you'll find jobs on LinkedIn with this forward deployed engineers, which is
Okay.
basically a mix of PMs and software engineers, people who can technically understand the problem, give a solution, and then if needed, code a little bit as well.
Okay. Awesome. I think again, software engineers can have a leg up in this case because they understand the code a bit more than maybe a product manager would, unless the product manager was somebody who transitioned from software engineering.
Right, right, right.
Cool. All right. Let's end with a few rapid fire questions just to know you a bit more beyond your software world. So, Hemant, I'll start quickly, which is your favorite movie.
Uh, I mean, like, I think I really like the Dhurandhar parts.
Okay.
So it's on my mind everywhere I go. Memes, music, everything is Dhurandhar. I mean, I used to like Three Idiots. I used to like a lot of movies, right? But I think very recent, if I think in India's everyone favorite is Dhurandhar currently.
Absolutely. Favorite cuisine to eat when you go out?
Uh, I really like Thai food, Mexican food, but I mean, Indian food, definitely, it's just like this is how I've grown up, so I liked it a lot. But I think if I'm not getting Indian food, then Thai or Mughlai, these kind of cuisines I enjoy.
Very cool. This is a weird one, and we don't need to dig deep into this, but do you
Yeah.
believe in God?
I do. I mean, I do believe I'm actually I won't say religious, but uh, been trying to get into spirituality, and I think with every passing year I've been becoming more spiritual. Right? I think like if you would have met me 5 6 years back, you would have a really different opinion of me. But I think like over the last 5 6 7 years, I think it's a part of adulting that I'm becoming more and more spiritual. Uh, Parents, in-laws, we go on trips with them, religious. So I get to understand, Hinduism, which my religion a lot deeper as well. So yeah, I am really liking that journey as well.
Awesome. And again, relatable. I think I grew more spiritual as I grew up as well. So
Yeah.
interesting. Final two questions. One is, what is your next bucket list destination that you want to travel to?
Uh, so I've explored a lot of countries in Europe and US. I mean, like US, I've traveled a lot. So, but I haven't seen this South Asian countries, right? So, hopefully, when the situation stands down, I really want to go to Vietnam. Really want to go to Indonesia, and I haven't been to uh, like Croatia and London, Switzerland, these countries also. So these are some things I really want to go. I want to go watch a test match in Lords. I want to go watch a test match in Melbourne Cricket Ground. So these are the bucket list items which I like. Wankhede also I haven't been yet. So amazing experience. So these are things which are on my bucket list.
I mean, if you go, I mean, I'm going to make a trip pretty soon. Again, probably same 4 months, 6 months. I don't know what, but
Okay.
we'll watch a game together. If you haven't gotten a match
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
that would be awesome. Final thing is, I want you to give people who are watching this episode a challenge that they can do within 2 hours over this weekend, especially on the topic that we talked about. And let's take their next software engineering role as that topic. What is a challenge they can do in 2 hours during this weekend that will help them make a good enough progress in their job search?
I think I would, if I have 2 hours, I would, and if I haven't done it very recently, I would polish my resume, right? A lot of resume which I see from my mentees, it just lists down what they have done, right? But it should list down what impact it made, right? And what I also say is that every line of your resume, every point in your resume, uh, it should have all the four things. One is context, like why did you work on that problem, right? Second is like basically what you did in a very short way. Then like what numbers, or like maybe revenue, or maybe developer productivity, or maybe social impact, what impact it created, and then what technologies it used, right? So you need to summarize your like entire maybe part of that project or that whole point. uh, those four things should be covered, right? So like whatever I'm saying, feed this to chat gpt, give your resume, ask it that hey, rewrite the resume using this formula, right? uh, and then it will give you something which is almost 60 70% complete, right? But it also assumes a lot of things, right? It will try to maybe exaggerate some stuff or things like that. So just edit it, work with that, and I think it would take you easily 1.5 hours. You think that it's a quick exercise, but when you really reflect on what you have done, what was the impact of it, right? You need to really think much in that aspect. So I think that that's a good exercise, and it's also the first step. Like whatever cohort I teach, I think this is also the first exercise, right? Using this formula, rewrite your resume, and I think it's a very productive exercise, and also the first step to your new job or maybe to your new promotion. Yeah.
Awesome. That is great. Uh, yeah, like Krish mentioned, right? Which is context, what you did, what numbers and impact, what technology you used. That is
Yeah.
perfect. I call this in my with my mentees. I call this a micro why how what. Like every bullet
Okay.
should have a micro story of why did you do this, how did you do it, and what was the impact of it.
Right.
And
Right.
again, there are different ways to say the same thing, but it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
in the end you are trying to show not just what you did, but also like what was the impact of it. So that
Yeah.
is awesome. That is great. Hemant, this was great, man. I had a fun time having this conversation. And also, when I was, like I told you, that I was talking to a few common friends yesterday, and I just mentioned that I had not really sat down and looked at your career graph
Yeah.
so far. We've been friends and friendly, and
Yeah.
we chatted. But I was like, damn, this is impressive. I mean, again, Amazon, Tesla, SAP, Salesforce, Meta, LinkedIn. And I was like, dude, that is crazy. And I think I'm glad that you are sharing your journey. So if somebody is wants to learn more from you, where and how should they reach out?
Definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the most effective or most active platform I'm on, right? You can reach out to me on Instagram also. I've just started diving into that. Or like, I mean, there's a newsletter also which I write. So uh, do subscribe it. You'll find my email ID and other ways to contact me there as well. But I think LinkedIn is probably the recommended way, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show, Hemant, and for everybody watching live and asking questions. I really appreciate you. Thank you for doing that. Whoever's watching the recording as well, thank you for enjoying the Beyond Grad Show.
Thank you for organizing. I think it was really great discussion, right? And I hope like the viewers got some value out of it as well. And thank you for just running this series. I've been watching previous episodes as well, right? A lot of them I've been talked to. I've admired their content or their journey. So it really I mean honestly it really feels good because uh, I knew them, but I did not know like their journeys or the details which you covered. So thank you for doing it, and yeah, let me know when you're in India next time, and we'll catch up.
It's my pleasure. I was having these private conversations, and I'm like, dude, these people are sharing gold information. Why not just do it live? That was all the
Right.
genesis of the show. Thank you for coming again, man. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Varun. Yeah. See ya. Bye bye.